The problem with the reverse osmosis is that you do lose quite a bit of the water. It sort of pushes the water through a membrane, so it removes a lot of things from your water. But there's brands around that have that reverse osmosis component, so that's going to give you the cleanest water, but you're losing some of your mineral content as well. So it's a matter of weighing that up. But there are ones around that it can alkalise your water as well. So there's a component to it that makes your body more alkaline, or makes your water more alkaline. I think they're a good idea. Mm-hmm. We can all do with being a bit more alkaline. But that'd be more one of the top of the line ones with the reverse osmosis and the alkalinising component to it as well.
And Peter Mullen, welcome in again. And what's on the agenda today?
Well, Jane, I thought with Christmas or summer, talking about summer, Christmas coming up, we may be tempted to be drinking other liquids at this time of year. So I thought it's a good time to just refresh why drinking water is pretty much the only thing we should be drinking.
Listen up, we're saying water is on the agenda. It might not be the hottest day today, but certainly we've had some hot days and we know it's going to get warmer.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And we should be drinking water all year round and making sure we're drinking enough water. But summer coming up, particularly for elderly people and kids, I see a lot of kids in practice that just generally don't drink water. And I think a common mistake we can make as parents is introducing our kids to cordial or fruit juice or even milk. And kids sort of thinking that if they're going to have something to drink, they'd rather have something that's either sweet or, in the case of milk, it's more of a food. So, kids come into the practice and I'll say to them, what are little monkeys in the wild drink? And they say water. And I say, well, what should little children be drinking? And they say, cordial. So water and encouraging. It's a big thing with kids' health is to encourage them to drink water right from the start.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So with water, not all water is created equal. Mm-hmm. And, ideally water should be consumed in the most natural state possible. Our body's made up to 60% of water. And I always say it's a bit like having goldfish. Your cells are a bit like goldfish in a goldfish tank. If you don't replace the water, you're not going to get the maximum amount of your cell function. Mm-hmm. And we need water for so many things in the body. We produce, quite a bit of digestive acid, and we produce a lot of bile every day. So all of these liquids need to be replaced and replenished. The first organ affected by dehydration is our liver. Uh-huh. So interestingly, for a lot of people that get headaches, fatigue, even things like brain fog, can be aggravated by being dehydrated. Because if you imagine the liver's like a pool filter, and when you're 20, it's like that pool filter's brand new. It doesn't matter what you throw into the water. The next day, it's all beautiful and clean. As we get older, that filter doesn't work as well. And if you're dehydrated, if you're drinking lots of coffee or alcohol, both of which are diuretics, they actually accentuate your dehydration. Then your blood's going to be more concentrated, liver's going to work harder, you're going to feel the effects of that.
So coffee, tea and alcohol all contain water, but
we don't count those in your water quota for the day, unfortunately.
So what is our water quota for the day?
Well, look, various thoughts about that. I sort of stick with the 8 glasses or 2 litres as a general rule. There's other ideas out there, but I always think, always check out or go by the colour of your wee. Your urine will always be yellow or more concentrated in the morning, but ideally if you're drinking enough water during the day, it should be nearly clear by lunchtime and should sort of stay fairly clear till you go to bed ideally.
Okay, so that's how we tell.
Yeah, so that's what it is. It's easy enough to do. Like all the work sites have that, have the signs up in the toilets inviting everybody to check their wee. So I think it's a good thing to do.
Yes, I suppose especially if you're working out of doors, you probably lose a lot more water.
And we lose a lot of the reason why our urine's more concentrated in the morning is we actually lose quite a bit of fluid while we're asleep through respiration and even through perspiration as well. So. Yeah, a good way to start the day. And for kids, one of the best ways to turn their brain on in the morning is to get them to have a big glass of water first thing, as soon as their feet hits the floor, because the brain's the second organ that's going to be affected by dehydration.
Okay, and does that work for adults as well?
Absolutely, absolutely, with a bit of lemon in it for adults.
So there are all sorts of waters. We're going out into the hills, we're going to find a nice mountain spring and we're going to get ourselves 2 litres of water every day.
That's option 1.
Okay.
Option 1, if you can find somewhere where there's no pollution. So otherwise, we're looking at tap water, bottled water, or filtered water. And we're so fortunate in Australia and in the Western world that we have access to clean, fresh water. You know, you only have to turn a tap on and you get beautiful, clean water comes away. So we're very fortunate. And, you know, there's one of the challenges, though, with tap water is that as much as it's very well regulated what goes into the water, to get water from a dam sort of state, like Grahamstown Dam, to the water quality that is not going to have bacteria or viruses or protozoa in it, and minimal chemical contamination, you know, they're going to have to add chemicals back into that, you know, such as chlorine particularly. And while most people may be able to process and detox that chlorine okay, you know, for a lot of my patients that have thyroid issues, there's quite a bit of concern about chlorine competing with thyroid hormone for binding sites. So, you know, I'm a big fan of trying to get this great water that we get access to, but then take these extra chemicals out. And water in Australia has been shown to contain chemicals such as chlorine. Aluminium's often used in the process to remove other contaminants, but they're leaving behind small residual particles. Now, all of these levels in our water are, you know, under the current Australian safety standards. However, for people particularly that have poor health, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, thyroid issues, or really sensitive health issues, even a small amount of these chemicals is going to do harm. And I think, you know, for babies and growing kids, I think it's important to try and get that water as clean as possible. Fluoride, and there's a bit of debate around about fluoride, that, you know, maybe we should be able to get enough from our toothpaste and the dentist rather than having to add it in our water supply, and nitrates from chemical contaminants, pesticides, and nitrates by themselves may be harmless, but they can convert in tap water to nitrites, which can be potentially problematic. Also, the other thing, we were up at Brisbane last weekend and talking to some chemists up there, doing a bit of a lab tour for one of our product suppliers, and he was saying that, you know, he's had a look at Brisbane water, particularly after there's been a lot of rain, and he said that, you know, there's a high level of pesticides and contaminants that may not always be screened or cleared effectively as what they should. So he recommended that he would definitely be using a filter of some description if he lived in Brisbane. So, you know, not saying that's what happens down here, but after heavy rains, after floods, you know, there's a lot more runoff and things are going to end up in our water supply that might slip through the cracks.
Bruce from Jules has rung in, and he's got a query about electrolyte water. Now, do you understand what he's talking about there, Peter?
I'm not 100% sure. I imagine it might be like a rehydration formula.
Okay.
You know, like an electrolyte after sport or training. And if that is the case, then yes, if someone's doing a lot of physical activity, if they're perspiring a lot, it is worthwhile looking at your electrolyte balance. I'm probably not a big fan for some of the commercial products that have a lot of sports drinks have a lot of sugar, sometimes have artificial sweeteners if they don't have sugar, often will have colours, and so I'd steer clear of products like that. There are a few really good products on the market used by triathletes that have a more contain elements like magnesium. Can't mention names on air, but there's a few really good ones around that don't have the additives and preservatives. For a lot of people, I'm a big fan of if you are training a lot, you know, and you're okay with salt, adding Celtic sea salt, half a teaspoon to a litre of water first thing in the morning if you are going to train. And I quite like a lot of the colloidal mineral formulas where the minerals come from petrified swamps, basically, so you get trace elements in easily digested and absorbable forms, and I think that goes a long way towards ensuring that your bases are covered.
Gives
and
you
then,
the electrolytes you need.
Absolutely. So I'd sort of try and get it more from like more natural sources, but if someone was training a lot, I'd look into some of the better quality rehydration formulas.
Excellent. Now let's that usually comes in bottles, but let's have a look at bottled water generally, not necessarily with the electrolytes added. How does that go in comparison with tap water?
Well, bottled water, again, it's become a convenience thing. You know, when companies like, I can't mention company names, but big companies that have a dark liquid in a glass bottle then put out water, you know that water's obviously a viable commercial product. The challenge may be where the water's come from as well. You know, does it come from a spring, or does it come from, you know, is it rebottled from somewhere else? The challenge is, you know, not knowing where that water's come from in the first place, but then also putting it into the plastic bottles. You know, and the theory is that the softer the plastic bottle, the more likely you are to be absorbing chemicals such as BPA or bisphenol A, which is a synthetic hormone disruptor used to make plastics. And BPA has been linked to a lot of serious health conditions, anything to do with hormonal balance, altered immune system function, increased risk of obesity, learning difficulties even. And with hot bottled water, you don't know how long it's been sitting. The water's been sitting in the sun, in that soft plastic. So, yeah, I'd steer clear of bottled water. Aside from that, you know, it does use up a pretty big energy footprint as well. You know, by the time they get the water, by the time they make the plastic bottles, you're looking at cost of transporting the water, refrigerating the water, and then ultimately, you know, up to a third only of that plastic is recycled, so the rest goes into our landfills. So, you know, I'm a fan of getting a good quality water bottle yourself and don't leave home without it.
So there are some plastics that make good quality bottles.
The theory, generally the harder the plastic is, the less movement, the less BPA, but there's water bottles around that are promoting the fact that they're BPA free. I quite like, you just got to be more careful with it, I kind of like glass bottles for carrying water around, and you can get some really nice ones that have shock absorbent
edges
outsides.
Yes.
Or stainless steel.
Yes,
you can get good quality stainless steel water bottles as well. But you know, we're leaving a house, even if we're just going for a short trip, I'll often grab a water bottle, fill it up out of the filter, and you know, off and away.
And we've talked about tap water, we've talked about filtered water, and there's still one option to go.
Well, yep. So we talked about tap and why, you know, you should steer clear of those commercial bottles. So I'm a big fan of filtering the water. As I said, we're so fortunate to have good quality water, but I think there is a benefit to just taking the last traces of those chemicals out of that water supply. And we're always talking about healthy, clean food. So I think, you know, eating organic. So I think we should place just as much importance on healthy water as well, particularly if we're trying to encourage our kids and, you know, ourselves and particularly the elderly to be drinking water. I think there's good merit in it. So there's three different types of filters you can choose depending on your needs and your budget. Mm-hmm. The first one is the granular or the carbon blocks. So there's quite a few of these on the market. And they're a low-cost starting point. So they're basically like a jug you can buy that has a central unit in it, and you just fill it up out of your tap.
Yes.
And then put it in the fridge if you want cold water, leave it on the bench if you want room temperature water. And it is an interesting experiment to do, actually, to fill up a jug of water and just leave it on the sink. And you'll find within a short period of time you'll get quite a strong smell of chlorine coming away. Again, the chlorine is within the Australian safety limits, but the fact is if you're drinking 2 litres of it every day and doing that for years, then I think that could become a problem. So those jug type ones are a good starting place. The next one after that is they're a sort of a bigger unit. We use one in at work. And basically, it's like a water stand. Mm-hmm. So it's got a more complex filter arrangement in it. And the idea is you fill up the top with your tap water. It slowly drips through a bigger filter and then into a reservoir. So you've got like a bigger quantity. So if you've got a family, and again, they're sort of middle to lowish, maybe around the $200 mark for one of those. The jugs may be around the $50 mark. Mm-hmm. So we use that at work because we can just top it up and we don't have to have it plumbed in. It's just an easy one to use. And I think we replace the filters on that every 6 months or so, same as the jug. And then probably one of the ideal ones is, but again, it's the more expensive version. It's a reverse osmosis filter.
It sounds magic.
The problem with the reverse osmosis is that you do lose quite a bit of the water. It sort of pushes the water through a membrane, so it removes a lot of things from your water. But there's brands around that have that reverse osmosis component. So that's going to give you the cleanest water, but you're losing some of your mineral content as well. So it's a matter of weighing that up. But there are ones around that it can alkalise your water as well. So there's a component to it that makes your body more alkaline, or makes your water more alkaline. I think they're a good idea. We can all do with being a bit more alkaline. But that'd be more one of the top of the line ones with the reverse osmosis and the alkalinising component to it as well.
And of course the expense goes up with each of the improvements.
Yeah. And with the reverse osmosis you can get that plumbed in under your sink as well, so, and then get a tap on top, so it fits in easy as well. But starting, depending on where your budget is, as one thing I do recommend to all my patients though is work towards getting your water as clean as you possibly can, same as we want to work towards getting our food as clean as we possibly can as well.
So it's all goes hand in hand. Now you've got a talk coming up fairly soon, Peter.
Our next talk in the new year, we let people have Christmas off.
Oh, nice.
Marginally let our hair down for a little while for Christmas, but our first talk for the new year is on the 23rd of Jan. On talking about weight loss and the ketogenic diet particularly. If people just go to mullenhealth.com.au.
That'll get you there. All good. Well, thank you very much, Peter Mullen. We look forward to talking to you again next week.
Fantastic, Jane. Lovely to see you.
Health and well-being on 2NURFM.